Welcome to Chiropractic Roots, the official podcast of the Kansas Chiropractic Association. Here, we explore the struggles and successes of chiropractors across the Sunflower State. In each episode, we interview Kansas DCs to learn how their chiropractic journey began, how their practices took shape, and what lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're a seasoned professional, a student, or simply chiropractic curious, you're in the right place to hear from the roots of the profession. I'm Dr. Travis Haller, Executive Director of the Kansas Chiropractic Association, the nation's first chiropractic association. Let's get adjusted. Our guest today is Dr. Terry Webb. Dr. Webb, welcome to Chiropractic Roots, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, sir. I was born in South Hutch, Kansas, and Hutchinson, sorry. Went to school, local high school. Nickerson was where I went, and then to Hutch Community, and then went to Palmer College. Graduated on Flag Day just a few days ago in 1980, so 45 years ago. So,
wow. Happy anniversary on your graduation there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. So, what was your first experience with chiropractic?
I was in a minor car accident, and I really didn't feel like I was in bad shape. I was 16, and so my mom sent me in to see Dr. Earl, who was a local chiropractor here in town. He was just a very class act. I mean, just all the way around, well spoken, and he took care of me for a while. And I'd had a sinus condition that I'd had since I was a kid, and all sorts of treatments, stuff like that. And within a couple of weeks, it was clear, and I was just amazed. So I was working as a 16-year-old. They had an internship at the hospital I was working at the time in a pathology lab, and between the great experience I had with chiropractic and then being in the hospital watching people die and stuff like that, I thought that's not me.
Yeah. So, is that when you decided to become a chiropractor?
Yes, yeah, that was pretty much it right there. At that point I had kind of a couple of different leads. I knew it was going to be in healthcare of some sort. I knew I didn't want to be a dentist for sure, but that didn't sound like any fun.
Yeah, it does not sound like fun at all. So, you went to Palmer. Tell me a little bit about your time at Palmer.
We started up there. I really didn't at the time. Dr. Earl went to Palmer, and another gentleman I knew that I respected went there too. And so I never really thought or investigated any other colleges. So I can't say there was any particular reason other than I was real impressed with the folks that had gone there. My wife and I moved up there in my first day of college at Palmer was July 7th of 1977. So I thought all those sevens in a row must be a good thing. But worked my way pretty much all the way through college. My wife did as well, and so graduated and was here the next day.
Wow. So one of the questions I'm asking to try to get a sense for how much this has changed. Do you know how much you paid for college?
My first year's tuition for 9 months was $1,000, about $325 a quarter, I believe. And so by the time we got done, I think it was a little over 1,000 a quarter. But you figure 3 months. I'm sorry. I mean, three quarters in an academic year. That's not much.
That's not. So you were able to work and pay for college.
Yes, yes. That was during the late 70s and early 80s was when the prime interest rate went up to almost 20%. And student loans were available. I was lucky to be able to snag a couple at like 5% and 7%. And so I borrowed the money and we just banked it, and which wasn't much, but at the same point, it helped us get started.
Tell me a little bit about your first practice.
My first practice, it was it's a silly story, but we graduated on the 14th of June. We came back. I was here by the 15th. We'd already had a building rented. And between my dad and I and some help, we remodeled the whole building. I would go to work about 5 in the morning to work, and he'd show up about 5 in the evening to work myself to midnight. I got to hate my dad for a little while, but within 6 months, within 6 weeks, we were open. And so that was pretty amazing. So I started out on my own completely. I didn't have any help at all. the phone number we originally had back then, you had to get your phone number way ahead of time. So it was at my folks' house, so they transferred it over. But so it was probably within 6 months before I had actually someone in the office with me, and we just kind of from there.
Yeah. So yeah, I was thinking, I was talking to somebody the other day about phone books and opening up things that doctors nowadays don't have to worry about. I mean,
Mhm.
I went out on my own. I worried that I was starting at the wrong time of the year because the phone books won't have my name in it for another 6 months.
Exactly right.
It's just not a concern anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you opened up your own space. Is that the same space you're still in, or have you moved?
No, no, we've moved, we've remodeled several four buildings since then. That's the building we started off with. We started about 1,000 square feet, and we remodeled that one about 3 times within 7 years, and then moved. And was the next place for 13, the next place for about 20, and then in my current location for the last 10.
Mhm.
So
Did you have a mentor early in your career?
luckily I had several. I was lucky. I started out. Some of the doctors I was going to school with had gone to Parker, and back then Parker seminars was it's a lot different than the last one I went to. There were several people there that were happy to share life with you, understand what was going on. It wasn't so much about making money as it was about service, and that impressed me. I was into my practice a few years working towards associateships when I first met Dr. Hasey, Glenn Hasey, and he was probably my primary from that time on, um, one of my primary mentors.
Yeah, Dr. Hazy's a great person. And if you haven't listened to our interview with him, the first Chiropractic Roots episode, highly recommend anybody listening to this go back and listen to that one. You can learn a lot about not just how to be a better doctor, but how to be a better person from Dr. Hazy. At least I think I've learned that from him. Now I know that you mentor quite a few people yourself. One question I want to know is when you mentor somebody, what's the one thing that you want them to know about being a chiropractor?
That it's about service, more than anything else. If the old Parker, acronyms about loving service, as you mentioned at Dr. Hasey's um, interview, loving service, my first technique. That the first thing they have to know is that you're on their side. That you appreciate them, that you want to help them in any way you possibly can. And sometimes that's, one of the first things I tell new patients, if I can help you, I will. If not, we'll find somebody who can, and that's just keep offering them hope. That's
Yeah, that comes to my question about building trust in patients, having the patients trust you and understand that you know what you're doing is for the best for them, not for you.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long were you in practice before you thought you knew what you were doing?
um, July 28th will be 45 years for me, and maybe by July 28th. But no, I'm comfortable, with what I do, and I'm sure it was a few years. You have to have those episodes of being beyond what you can do and realizing it. Because once you get those boundaries set of, this is what I take care of, this is what I don't take care of, then it makes it easier. But I'm sure it was years.
Yeah, I agree. I felt sorry for the patients that I saw my at least first 6 months in practice. As much as you can adjust somebody in student clinic, it's not the same as
No,
touching a real patient. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. So, how do you, especially when you were first in practice, but even now, how do you stay involved in your local community?
Um, at first I was obviously involved in a church, but I was also involved with a business club that was just starting out, just a new one. American Business Club, AMBUCS is what it was at the time, and they worked primarily with children with disabilities, and so that just kind of fit the need that way. And we were growing, so that was a good one to do. Besides that, in church, I don't know as I did, the community club, the MBUCS was a busy place to be at. So those were my two main venues.
What about how do you maintain work-life balance? Now, I know that you've got a different story now. I want to ask about when you were first in practice, and then we'll talk about now.
And Dr. Heasley will talk about, basically the circle, the 7 areas of life that you have to deal with. And so much of the time when you start off with, at least myself, I was so out of balance on building the practice. I mean, I was working 60, 70 hours a week, not seeing patients 60, 70 hours a week. A lot of times I was just sitting and reading or something else. So part of that was learned. I'm sure it was a good 10 years into practice before we started having children. And then that started, really helping me balance out more so.
Mhm. So how about now? How do you maintain your work-life balance now?
Now it's just almost natural. It's, when I go to work, I concentrate. There again, Parker principle, present time consciousness. You just be where you're at. Because if I'm at work, I try to remain that and try not to check my phone, do other things, anything that would distract me. And when I'm home, it's my wife and I just made it a habit. Okay, well, we've got about 5 or 10 minutes to discuss what happened at work, and then we're done. Then we just move on with family and everything else along those ways. That's what worked out best for us.
Yeah, I find that to be so powerful to be where you are, not where you think your mind is going. It's
Mm-hmm.
difficult, but it's powerful. What do you wish you knew when you first opened your office?
A lot of things, but probably just that, chiropractic does work. At times when you wonder if this is going to work. I mean, the patient deserves to know that, hey, this may not work, but it is very much worth a try. And some of the things that I don't think, I mean, I'm not treating cancer or, I treat patients with cancer, but it's not like I can cure cancer. But there are patients when I'm thinking, I shouldn't, osseously move their cervical spine, but there may be something else I can do. And sometimes those patients just surprise you. And, they were sent there for a reason. And if you miss it because you're scared, um, because you don't know if you can help them, then that's, it's okay to be honest with them and tell them, but it's worth a try.
Next thing I would ask, then, kind of corollary to that, is what information or advice would you give to doctors that are just now graduating and starting to open their own practices?
The biggest thing I think is that you need some sort of a group that you meet with on a regular basis. Whether it's, I was lucky. I went through chiropractic college with Dr. Mark Newman, and he and I we lived in the same trailer park. I mean, so we were around each other probably way more than we should have been. But even after we started practice, we kept involved with each other. We checked back and forth that way. And over years, we built other relationships to where, even now there are three of us that meet every month, and we talk about, what's going on with practice, family, social, all those things to try to keep us accountability group. You can call it that. But that to me is why groups like the KCA is so important, because to be outside of that and trying to be on your own, and and just and you see that with everything, especially with social media and all. You can find somebody who's going to agree with you all the time, and that's not necessarily good. I mean, I can tell you, I can tell you whatever is a good idea, but if there's 3 or 4 people that you trust, that they're a kindred spirit enough to do that, that's so important.
I agree. I have a group I meet with once a month to talk about the areas of our life, our goals, making sure we're progressing towards our goals. But then I also, outside of chiropractic, in the executive director world, have people that I meet with regularly to talk about this because they're kind of two different areas of life. And I think it's highly important that the peer mentoring of that really goes a long way to making you a better person. And that's really what it's about. You can't be a good doctor if you're not a good person.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily have to be older or supposedly, more experienced than you. I learned, and there was a gentleman that I knew early on in practice, and he taught me a lot of things of what not to do. I would go back and look in his back room, and he would buy every new gadget for chiropractic, use it for a short time, and I don't know what kind of inventory he had back then, but he would admit it. He'd say, "Oh, I should have done this." And then I also learn a lot from the younger doctors, the young doctor who took over my practice, who's managing my practice or our practice now, excuse me. I learn a lot from him. He's got a good heart, he's got good hands, and he's just got enough things that I did not learn that kind of knock some of the dinosaur off me, and
Mm.
make me look at some of the newer things.
Yeah, that's great. I look at it, you almost need three layers of mentors. You need somebody that's been there and done that, that can encourage you to understand that you can get there and do it too. You need somebody that's on your level, that is teaching, that's just there to keep you accountable. And then maybe somebody younger that has the knowledge of the new technologies or the new ways of doing things to help you improve your life that way too.
You're absolutely right.
You can't just have one mentor, and you can't just go get your information from one source.
Well, and to add what you're saying, you have different mentors in different parts of your life. You do need a different spiritual mentor, or hopefully you get one that can do, a lot of different things. But that family sometimes, that's just, that's yeah, well done, Doc.
Yeah, I love hearing that from you. So, where do you think or hope chiropractic will go in the future? I know you've been around for, as you said, your anniversary is 45 years from graduation. You've seen a lot of change. Where do you think we are going towards?
I hope we remain taking care of the structural part of the body. I really do. I mean, there's no doubt that we're neuromuscular skeletal for certain, but I think if we ever get away from the actual adjustment, whether that's manual, whichever way we do that, if we lose the importance of that, that's our uniqueness and the intent that we have when we do go in and try to find those structural things are different than what physical therapists and other things are. Yeah, they're all gifted. I mean, we all should have a physical therapist we can refer to, an orthopedist, all those folks. But at the same point, what they do is definitely not what we do. So I would hate to see us totally, because I would not have a problem with this being in the medical model, period, as long as we kept that idea that the treatment, the adjustment, the structural part of it is our primary.
Mhm. And intention matters. When you walk into that room, if you intend to get the patient better, if you like the patient even, that makes a difference.
No, it's tough treating. It's amazing how strong the mind can be with the new EHR programs, the monitors we have in the room. It'll actually show the patients around in the waiting room, and more than one time I've looked up there and I've seen a name and I'm thinking, ugh, and and they disappear. They come in and they either don't want to do the paperwork, they don't want to do something, and I'm thinking, I probably shouldn't do that. I need to be accepting of every single person. Yes, sir.
Mhm. Yeah, there's been many times I've thought, what happened to so and so patient? They're on the schedule the next day.
Yeah, that's right.
If you think about them and put thought into people, you're going to run into them more often. That's crazy how that works. So you've mentioned it a little bit about the doctor that's now running your practice. Tell us a little bit about your exit strategy.
My whole concept was I wanted to continue to practice. I've seen so many doctors that the only way they can quit is that they physically wear out. They have a heart attack, they have something, and instead of a transition, it's a crisis. And so suddenly they're just, either their spouse or their family just suddenly have this practice dumped on. I enjoy practice, and I enjoy it even more now because the gentleman, Dr. Moore, who's we share an office now, he's doing all the management, he's doing all the scheduling, everything like that at all. So basically, I'm back to being able to just take care of patients, and it's been a transition. So many times, if the senior doctor thinks that his way is the only way to do it, it destroys him. And if the younger doctor, the newer doctor, does not appreciate and to a point honor the senior doctor or the older doctor, then that destroys that pretty closely too. But I can't imagine a better situation than I have. I really can't.
That is great. I've been in a number of multi-doctor practices through my career, and the biggest thing that I've noticed, you cannot have an ego. If you think everything you do is right and somebody does it a different way and you think they're wrong, it's not going to work out in that practice. You also have to understand that you may go on vacation and the other doc's going to see your patients, and that patient may decide, I like this other doc better. And it doesn't matter as long as the patient's getting the care they need. Who cares who they see? And it's hard for some people to get to that point though. But once you're there, you're able to share a practice and be able to have more free time like you do now.
Right, and that it is a change, a trade-off for certain. And my ego got bruised a couple of times, and it's nothing that the doctor did, but you want to be the only guy that person sees. But as that time has gone on with it, it really is more comfortable. But it is a transition for both docs that way.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right. That's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah. So, what is something about you that your patients may be surprised to learn?
I asked my wife that. That's a tough one. that my patients pretty well know that I like to travel. There were a few of them that, as far as my personality, I'm pretty open. So, they kind of know what's going on that way. I think the thing that surprises more of any silly thing I can think of is that I got to shake hands with Pope Francis one time. There's a picture in the office that way, and I'll still have people every once in a while. How'd you do that? Kid raised in a Methodist church that gets to shake hands with the Pope. That's probably as surprising as anything. So.
That's a great story. So, last couple of questions. First one, I know that you were on the Kansas Board of Healing Arts, the licensing agency. What did you learn from being on there?
That chiropractors are awesome. They really are. That they care more about their patients, not more than medically does do necessarily, but than what that medical model does. The individual medical physicians care about their patients. But I also learned that, man, they do a lot crazier stuff than than we do. I mean, and I don't mean necessarily just in practice, but outside life, never be embarrassed by being a chiropractor. I mean, some of the behavioral things we saw while we were there was just amazing. But the camaraderie, the professional integrity of those 15 medical doctors, osteopaths, public members, and chiropractors were outstanding. They would not, it wasn't a turf battle. I mean, the chiropractors would discipline and be the most irritated with chiropractors. The medical physicians and osteopaths would be most irritated with their own themselves. So a lot of times the chiropractors would almost come to the rescue of some of the medical physicians that, they didn't really do anything that bad. It was just kind of right on the edge. There was a gentleman who had retired from practice 40 or more years. He was working at a public clinic, and he didn't have his license renewed. And the corporate had done that all his life. And here he is working for free, and he's standing in front of the board, being reprimanded for that. And it was the three chiropractors that kind of said, hey, let's give this guy a break. And so
Wow.
it's still for you again.
And it's really good to see how everything works together. The Board of Healing Arts shows us that the professions can get along.
Very, very much so. It's that I wouldn't say they were my buddies, but I definitely have friendships that have lasted with me being off the board the last 6-8 years with the medical community. Some of those folks.
Yeah, and the respect really goes both ways there. It's nice to see. So, last question. And so you said that you were going to be in the healthcare field somewhere. In high school, you'd made that decision. If you weren't able to be in the healthcare field, what would have you done with your life?
I don't know. It would have been something either engineering or something along that lines. It would have been. I enjoy being outside too much, so it would have to be something to where there was something more on whatever part of engineering I could have been in. I didn't study it all that much myself because I was pretty single minded about what I wanted to do. So
Wonderful. Dr. Webb, Thank you so much for being here today on Chiropractic Roots. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about your chiropractic journey. Is there anything else you want us to know?
I think I've already hit on it that uh, for sure, make sure you have some sort of a group you can meet with on a regular basis. Secondly, make sure you're getting adjusted. I'm amazed at the number of chiropractors who don't get adjusted at all, let alone once a month or every few weeks. I think that's one of the obviously most important thing to stay healthy. Not that my health is completely great, but I'm 70 years old and I can still practice. And I hate to see chiropractors wear themselves out that way. But there again, I'm don't join something. I don't care if it's KCA. I think that's what you should join. But join something like that and participate in life because boy, that's important. Really is. Dr. Ollier, I appreciate you doing this. You do a really good job of it too. So, and you're doing a great job as executive director. And that I appreciate your direction.
Well, thank you. I consider myself lucky to consider you one of my mentors in practice and life and appreciate your time today. Have a great day.
I will, I promise. You too.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Chiropractic Roots, brought to you by the Kansas Chiropractic Association. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow chiropractor or student. To learn more about the KCA and our mission to support chiropractic in Kansas, visit kansaschiro.com. Until the next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and keep adjusting.